Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Sam Redgate-Large channel, and today we have one transfer each Premier League side should make over summer. This is the part one or part A of this two-part series with this, and we're going to do from Arsenal down to Leicester in this video. If you do enjoy this and you want to keep up to date so you can see the next video, do be sure to smash that like button and of course hit subscribe as well if you are new to the Sam Redgate-Large channel. So we will jump into this and we'll just get straight on with it. We'll start off with Arsenal. Arsenal, their biggest weakness this season has been a lack of a striker. Whilst they have Lacazette, who has been decent this season, decent is a bit of a stretch. The goals have been coming from those attacking midfielders in Smith Rowe, Saka, Ødegaard and Martinelli. And so they need someone who's going to lead the line so that those behind can be a little bit more creative. Naturally, they went in January for Dusan Vlahovic, who was having a fantastic season at Fiorentina and has moved to Juventus now and has continued that goal scoring form. Dusan Vlahovic is therefore the point that we are going to look at and the striker, and why not find the closest thing to him? Patrick Schick, for me, is that man who has scored similar amounts of goals this season and has a better goals per game ratio actually than Dusan Vlahovic. Stat wise, in terms of goals and assists and shot creating actions, shots taken, they are both very, very close and similar in the way that they play. So Mikel Arteta might well be looking at Patrick Schick, who's bagged 20 goals so far this season in the Bundesliga. I think it could work. It just depends if Patrick Schick can keep this form up. As we know, this is one of the first seasons that Patrick Schick has really started to come on. He's hit 20 for the first time in his career. And so Mikel Arteta just needs to be very, very wary, but he could be a fantastic signing for Arsenal. Let's move on, and of course alphabetically, let's move on to Aston Villa. And Aston Villa come into this video realistically with 4 losses in a row, and so defensive capabilities are maybe being called into question. They of course signed Lucas Digne over the January transfer window, and that was a great signing. So I'm going to look at the centre halves, as I think Matty Cash is a player who could play for Villa for a couple of years to come and won't be out of his depth. I think there's a good enough ceiling there. But we will talk about centre halves, and I'm going to suggest Roger Ibanez of Roma. And it might be a little bit controversial because Roma are playing European football and there's quite a hefty price tag being chucked around for him. But I think he's been very, very good this season for Roma. I think this could be a really good signing. He outperforms the other centre halves of Aston Villa, including the likes of Mings, Courtney Hause, and of course Ezri Konsa. I'm not saying it would be a swap for Ezri Konsa in any shape or form, but I think he could definitely advance this defence and who knows, maybe improve Aston Villa. And looking at the stats, I think the stats tell you absolutely everything. He is miles ahead in tackles, pressures and interceptions than the Aston Villa defenders that I've just mentioned, and it looks like a no-brainer for an improvement. Like I said, maybe the sticking point will be that 20 to 40 million pound price tag that could fall on Ibanez's head, especially if Roma continue that push. Brentford are a team that are on the back of 6 wins out of 7, fantastic form, and you've got to question then, where can they improve? They're doing that well. But I'm going to go with and look at the creativity, and I'm going to say that they need a new winger, and that winger is going to be Anthony Gordon. Of course, very dependent on whether Everton go down or not, but if they do go down, I can see this being a really good move for Anthony Gordon. 21 years of age and is more than capable of starting for Brentford. Definitely the criticism of Brentford is if Christian Eriksen doesn't sign pen to paper, where does that creativity come from? And I think Anthony Gordon could be the catalyst for their creativity next season. I think he would work very, very well alongside the likes of Ivan Toney and Mbeumo, and potentially be able to improve their goal scoring output. Mbeumo at the moment has 8 XG, which sounds good, but he's only scored 4 goals this season, so something needs to change. 2.51 shot creating actions per 90, scoring above his XG. Anthony Gordon looks like he has the total package, and I think in a side such as Brentford that plays nice football and aren't afraid to attack, I think he will only go and get better and better.
Where he played? No, exactly.
Next up is Brighton. Brighton, I think they need a new centre-half. Of course, they lost Dan Burn in January to Newcastle United, and I think they need a replacement. And a player who I think could be a replacement is James Tarkowski. It's looking likely that Burnley will go down this season, and James Tarkowski, a Premier League experienced player, former England international as well, 29 years of age. It is a bit of a quick fix, but definitely more than capable. In terms of him compared to Dan Burn, very similar defensive output, but the one sticking point could be he's maybe not as good on the ball. But that tends to be as well because of the way that Sean Dyche has played with Burnley over the last few years. It's very difficult to weigh this one up, but I think it would be an excellent signing. I think he could be a real heart of that defence, and him alongside Lewis Dunk to me screams like a rock at the back. The price tag would be about 20 million. James Tarkowski doesn't quite fit the play style that we love at Brighton, and Potter loves at Brighton, that fast flowing football, passing the ball, and so maybe this might be a little bit of a sticking point, but for £20 million it looks like a brilliant signing for Brighton. Next up is Burnley, and I'm going to take Burnley as if they're staying up, although I'm not overly confident that will happen. Burnley, I think there's going to be a massive restructure come in anyway, depending on who the manager is. They're all Sean Dyche's players, 100 million% the way that Sean Dyche like to play, and I'm sure we'll see a transition of the way that they play. And a player that I do think, though, has maybe run his time in this Burnley team is Matthew Lowton, a very good servant for Burnley and has been a solid player for Burnley and reliable over the last few years. I just think they can do better in that right back role. And a suggestion for me would be Max Aarons. Max Aarons, 22 years of age, of course, is equaling Matthew Lowton in terms of defensive outputs and then bettering him by a long way in terms of passing and attacking. And so this to me seems like a no-brainer. I think Max Aarons, though, might want to stay at Norwich, especially with Dean Smith there. He might see the attractive brand of football that Dean Smith is trying to play and say, actually, I want to stay at Norwich. I think it'd be a good move if Burnley stay up for Max Aarons, and I think it could really bolster their attack. I'm surprised they haven't expanded in those defensive wide areas more often, if I'm honest with you, but I definitely think Max Aarons could be a good fit for Burnley, depending, of course, on who the new manager is. Chelsea, ladies and gents, is next, and Chelsea, of course, have a few problems in terms of players who they might potentially lose. Rudiger and Christensen, the two who are looking like they're going to be on their way out. Rudiger less likely, but Christensen is pretty much out of the door at this point. As a hope and as a wish as a Chelsea fan, I'm then going to say that Rudiger stays. And if Rudiger stays, that means we need one extra centre-half, and that's where I'm going. Jules Koundé was the man who was linked with Chelsea left, right and centre last season. He couldn't get away from the attention, and the big sticking point there was the fact that Sevilla wanted extra money. There's been an extra year wound down on that contract, and Jules Koundé again this season has proved he is a very good contributor to Sevilla's defence. He is, in comparison to the Chelsea defenders, the second best defender, even scoring better defensive outputs than Thiago Silva, who many deem to be in the Premier League team of the season so far. Jules Koundé for me seems like an absolute steal, 23 years of age. Even if we have to pay 50-60 million euros, with Thiago Silva still there, able to nurture and care and bring the best out of Jules Koundé, it looks like an absolute steal and an absolute must for Chelsea. Crystal Palace are a team who, unfortunately, this week have lost the semi-final of the FA Cup. And what that game did bring into question was, what do they do when Conor Gallagher has gone? Of course, he will be returning to Chelsea in the summer, and Chelsea are looking to keep him. Thomas Tuchel said he wants to keep him, and so that is the question that is going to be asked. What do they do when he leaves? And surprisingly, I've actually opted to go for a Chelsea player as someone to nominate, and I've gone with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. And the reason I've gone with that is because I think Vieira will like Ruben Loftus-Cheek in his team. This isn't down to stats, this isn't down to, you know, any rhyme or reason really, but Ruben Loftus-Cheek, we saw it at the weekend in that FA Cup semi-final, can dictate games, and he is strong, he's powerful, and he's excellent on the ball. If he can add some goals to his game, Conor Gallagher will definitely not really be missed. He's been fantastic, Conor Gallagher, this season, chipping in with goals, assists, absolutely everything. The game's been fantastic, but I just think Ruben Loftus-Cheek, at the age of 26, maybe needs to take a step to a club where he can get full game time. As a box-to-box midfielder, Ruben Loftus-Cheek could completely get rid of all their worries. Valued at about 20 mil as well. Seems like an absolute bargain for an England international. Next up is Everton, and I'm once again just going to assume that they stay up this season, even though I've done it for Burnley as well. But if they do stay up this season, of course, then they will have a lot to work on coming into the next season. I don't think there's been anything in particular that has gone wrong. If you were to look at it, it's just been a shambles of a season for Everton this year. They've had injuries, they've had worries, they've had absolutely everything. But one person who I will say who is maybe past his best at the moment is Seamus Coleman, and Seamus Coleman therefore is a player that I would be looking to replace if I was Frank Lampard, or at least try get a better starting player in those wide positions. Having lost Lucas Digne as well, they need another fullback in that squad, and so I have suggested Luke Thomas of Leicester. He's played 20 times for Leicester this season and has looked very good when he has done so. Luke Thomas might want to move from Leicester as well, considering they've got Ryan Bertrand, James Justin, Castagna and Pereira all there, so that's 4 fullbacks all in there as well. And so what that will do is, if Everton are able to secure Luke Thomas, it will, number one, give competition to Mykolenko on that left hand side, but it would free up John Joe Kenny, who's been playing on that left hand side as a right footer, and move him back to the right hand side. And then of course when Nathan Patterson is also fit as well and back and ready to rumble, then they will have 2 good fullbacks and still Seamus Coleman there in the dugouts to really bring on this Everton side. I think it's a very logical one to do, and 20 years of age, Luke Thomas, he's only going to get better and better. Leeds United is next, and we are going to go with, unfortunately, we're going to go up with another striker. And considering the injury worries of Patrick Bamford this season, it might be a little bit naive of me just to go straight in with a striker here, but I think they need one. Unfortunately, the way that it has fallen this season with Patrick Bamford getting injured, it has meant that at times Leeds have had to rely on Dan James through the middle, and as good as Dan James is as a winger, and he's pacey and he's confident with the ball at his feet, he isn't a goal scorer, he isn't a born goal scorer, and so that is what they need. And so in order to do that, I have gone back and compared Patrick Bamford of last season with a couple of players, and one of those players is Moussa Dembele from Lyon. The French striker played for Atletico Madrid though, didn't really hit the ground running, but has done a lot better this year at Lyon, scoring 14 goals so far in this campaign. He looks like he could be a really good player, has a similar shot output per game as well as Patrick Bamford did under Marcelo Bielsa. Of course, Jesse Marsch will be wanting to change the style of play, so maybe that isn't as such an idea, but someone who's quick and powerful and can be that lead man, Moussa Dembele definitely can be that if you put him in the right setup. And I think Jesse Marsch will look for one, whether it's a backup, whether it's a main striker, I don't know. But I think Moussa Dembele could work fantastically and they could get the best out of him. Last but not least, I am going to Leicester. And this is quite a big transfer, and I think Leicester have the budget for this one, but I'm going to go with Rafael Leao. And I think Rafael Leao could be a player that could become a legend if he did move to Leicester City. Leicester this season have had goal scorers, but they've had goal scorers getting injured quite a lot. So, for example, Jamie Vardy, I cannot remember him scoring a goal this season, but he's somehow managed to tuck home 10 in the Premier League. Kelechi Iheanacho hasn't been at his best, and Patson Daka yet to really hit the ground running. But the thing that Rafael Leao does better is that he can play out wide as well. They don't tend to have too many players who can play off that right hand side. They have Harvey Barnes on the left, and maybe that will offer a little bit of competition on the left and the right for Harvey Barnes and then Timothy Castagne potentially as well. If they're looking to play a 4 at the back with 3 forwards, then Rafael Leao for me is a fantastic option. 9 goals in the league so far this season, couple of assists as well. He's fantastic on the ball, can drive really hard, and I think he's better than any of the other players that they have in those wide options. And with someone like a Harvey Barnes who isn't known for his goal scoring unless it's an equaliser, I think Rafael Leao, despite the price tag of about £45 million for the 22-year-old, I think he could do a sensational job for Leicester City, and I think he could fire them back up the table where Leicester fans most certainly want to be. Well, that will conclude today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have enjoyed, do be sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe as well. Thank you for watching, and most importantly guys, stay safe. Cheers!